Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I was hoping you would get to see my t-shirt saying Running Strong in Kentucky. So I wore it today because I wanted to talk to you about running strong as a teacher. And actually, we're going to be talking about professionalism during Unit 5. Professionalism is everything that you do as an early childhood educator. And I want to tell you how important that your job is. Your book breaks professionalism down into 5 different areas. The first one being educating with intentionality and reflection. Number 2, making ethical decisions. Number 3, articulating values, vision, and passion. Number 3, continuing your professional development. And number 5, advocating for children and their families. That's all part of you being a professional educator in early childhood education. So I don't care if you're just keeping kids safe and you're keeping kids healthy, you're fostering their learning, you're taking care of their learning and developing, you're maintaining, strong partnerships with their families, managing, setting, controlling the environment. All these are you intentionally making a decision to be professional. So what is educating with intentionality and reflection? Well, um, Ann Epstein, who is the author of The Intentional Teacher, explains to be intentional is to act purposefully with a goal in mind and plan for accomplishing it. Intentional early childhood educators observe their children in their care, determine their needs, and employ best teaching practices based on their needs and reflect on the experience that's at hand. I need to drink a lot during this, so please excuse me. And I am drinking water. So intentional teachers have some characteristics and things that they need to be following. So if you will turn to page 328 in your textbook, Epstein goes on to say that there are 3 things that intentional teachers, well actually it's Schiller of 2007, he recommends this 3-step approach to an intentional teacher. Number 1 is to familiarize yourself with child development and research knowledge to understand which outcomes are best suited to the children in your care. So we are learning child development, and I'm trying to begin to teach you how to observe children. That's why I'm constantly harping on the fact that you need to be looking at your children, you need to be observing your children, you need to think and reflect on your children, you need to actually engage in their learning, knowing what child development milestones that they need to be having, what's typical, what's non-typical, and what is above average for children. And you need to begin fostering that in your children. The second thing is to select targeted, desired outcomes for children when planning your lesson plans. We have started to learn how to do that when I began to teach you in the past units on the BCTC lesson plan and how we had to link those early childhood standards to our goals, and then we had to assess our goals. That is actually selecting and targeting and planning and measuring a goal for your children. Those goals have to be developmentally appropriate for their age, and that's why the Kentucky Early Childhood Standards are there. And number 3 is to learn from the children you teach. Understand that teaching involves following and it involves leading. When I first got out of college, I graduated from Asbury University in 1986. And in September of that year, after graduation, I went to work at Stewart Home School in Frankfort, Kentucky. I was very young. I graduated from college when I was 20. So I had graduated even a year early from high school. So I was very, very young when all this took place. So here I was with a group of 20 special needs children in my classroom. And I went in as a science teacher. That was my first teaching assignment at Stewart Home School. I became the science teacher. I loved science. I loved teaching about the different kinds of rocks and planets and all these types of things. So I thought, this is really going to be cool, because the teachers at Stewart Home taught subjects. They didn't just teach one class all day long. So I had actually 6 different level classes that I taught all day, science too. So this particular one class that I had at 8:30 was the older generation of the special needs children there at Stewart Home. And I will never forget, after a week, they told me, "Miss Maria, you are boring." Well, I cried. I didn't want to be boring. I was a brand new teacher. I wanted to be the best teacher ever. And it was then I realized, I knew all this book knowledge, but I really didn't know how to apply what I had been taught. I was so enthusiastic about being this great teacher, but I really, really goofed it up that last week. So I asked them, "Well, how do you think I ought to teach science?" Well, they began to tell me, and I began to listen. And let me tell you something. When I began to listen to them, their ideas of teaching science were incredible. And so I began to learn from them. And I'll never forget, one of my students, his name was Tom. He was so funny. He said, "Yeah, look at you, Miss Maria. You're getting better every day." And I would say to those students at Stewart Home, they taught me how to teach. They did. They taught me how to be a teacher. They taught me how to deliver a teaching message that was fun and interactive and on their level, and just the humor that came out of it. Sometimes we think that teachers have to be straight-laced and, everything's got to be just perfect. That's not true. Teachers have their own personalities. You have your teaching personality, and they brought my teaching personality out. So don't be afraid to let the students just tell you, and then begin to reflect. You see, reflection is a process of observation and self-evaluation. Reflective early educators analyze how they respond to past experiences and how other involved individuals react. They began to look at those pieces in the puzzle, and then they began to say, "Hey, well, if this behavior had happened, then this may have happened." So reflection not only provides insight about your learning experience and your practice, but it also helps you to learn more about you and what makes you tick. As an intentional teacher, you understand who you are as a human being and as a professional. And your students will see that in you because you become a intentional teacher with your own personality. Reflection helps you better understand certain characteristics about yourself, and your book goes through those on page 329, to understand your values and your beliefs, to see your strengths and your weaknesses, know your teaching philosophy, your teaching and your learning styles, how past experiences have influenced you to be who you are, your understanding and your appreciation of diversity, or your lack of appreciation and understanding of diversity, your understanding and appreciation of dual language learners, your understanding of individual children and their learning and their behaviors, because each child has their own personality, and your role in the teaching process, and your authentic self, which is the most important. When you begin to practice these things, you are able to slow down and take a better look at how you teach. You're able to discover patterns in children's behaviors. You see how to take the theory and place it into practice. You determine whether or not you act with professionalism. You recognize and you change the negative behaviors that you see in yourself, and you grow and become that better teacher, that better director. You determine whether your teaching addresses teaching standards, and you uncover issues about children and their learning. And you are a great resource for new teachers who come aboard, because realizing the truth during reflection is awesome. When you realize the truth about yourself and you act upon that truth and change takes place, then every day you become a better teacher and you become more professional.